Okay, good afternoon, folks. Thanks for being here. It's shaping up to be a fun and exciting afternoon once again. So allow me to introduce myself. My name's Steven Sander. I'll be the facilitator this afternoon for the RDRS Reporting Requirements Workshop, RDRS Recycling and Disposal Reporting System. You can call me Steve, and I want to recognize and acknowledge some of my fellow staff members here. Eileen Hogue is going to be running the microphones this afternoon, so if you have, we'll cover that in a little bit later in the intro, but I also want to acknowledge Emily Kenta, Edward Chu, and Kate Wilkins. They'll be helping me out with some of the aspects of the workshop this afternoon. So with that in mind, let's just go ahead and jump right in. Just taking care of a few housekeeping items. So in the event of a fire or other emergency, our relocation area is Cesar Chavez Park, which is catty corner to this building. You'll want to follow myself or another staff member out of the building and down the stairs through the doors on the first floor plaza across the street is where we'll meet. And I don't anticipate that happening, but please follow the procedure. This meeting will be recorded and posted online as training material, so please do keep that in mind as well. Restrooms are going to be out these doors in the back. Continue walking east. They'll be just around the corner there. So just to go over some workshop guidelines, best practices for connecting remotely, and a small disclaimer. Okay, please hold your questions until each reporting entity sort of conversation has gotten to a conclusion, and then we'll open it up to some questions. There will be plenty of time for question and answer today. We have quite a while to discuss each reporting entity type, so hopefully we can fairly exhaustively cover any questions that you might have both on here in person and as well as on the online. Please speak loudly and directly into the microphone. If we can't hear you, we'll maybe ask you to project your voice a little bit. Please don't start speaking until the microphone has been passed to you, so everyone can hear what you have to say. So if we can't immediately answer your question, we'll try our best to follow up with you offline as well. So please listen actively and try to understand where folks are coming from with their questions. And please respect, at least for the duration of this workshop, the platinum rule. Treat others the way they want to be treated, since we're all here to learn and get more experienced with these regulations. And we're all working together to, make this thing work. And so, yeah, with that in mind, welcome to my webcast participants. Please send your succinct and straight to the point questions directly related to the material being discussed to the email box that we have open. That's RDRS at CalRecycle, all one word, .ca.gov. And we'll be taking the questions, as I said, both from in person and online. And if you have a very hyper-specific question, we may also just follow up offline or may paraphrase it down to something that more folks can relate to. I also want to stress that we'll be, in the context of this workshop here, we'll be discussing the sort of what entities need to keep track of. We're not going to be taking a deep dive into the actual data system concerning how to report. It's more so what do I need to keep track of in anticipation of filing a quarterly report. So we'll sort of frame the conversation around that. We'll be conducting additional training and outreach specifically related to the data system in the coming months. So not to worry about that. Okay, so just a little bit of a disclaimer here. Just want to make a few things clear in relation to this workshop today. First of all, this is not legal advice. I'm not an attorney. Even though we develop the regulations, we're still human beings and we're fallible. And so I may very well say something that might not correspond exactly with the regulatory requirements. If that happens, I just want to apologize in advance for that. You know, mistakes happen. These are pretty complicated in terms of the flows and various other things. Sometimes it's the case that you know, your facility may have some specific requirements or limitations. So, you know, any advice I give, you know, would you want to take that in mind as well. So, you know, ultimately what it comes down to is the businesses, facilities, and operations themselves are at the end of the day responsible for understanding the regulations and submitting the material in the correct format. So we as a department want to go halfway and make it as easy as possible for the regulated community to understand what's required of them. And what we ask is that the regulated community please engage with us as much as possible and try to, let's work together to make, you know, a better environment for Californians statewide. And I think working together will do just that. So let's see, what else? We'll make every effort to publish this training and outreach material basically as soon as this workshop has concluded. If there are any adjustments that need to be made, we'll do so as well. So enough for the housekeeping. Jumping right in sort of to the learning objectives for today's workshop. So by the end of the workshop, you should be able to go back to your organization and tell them that you know how to do the following 3 things with respect to RDRS reporting. So number 1, I know what information I need to record pursuant to RDRS reporting. So for solid waste facilities and operations, you're already collecting a lot of the required information, but we'll discuss sort of if there is anything additional that you might need to submit, and we'll talk about that in great detail so that everyone's on the same page as far as that goes. Learning objective number 2, I know which measurement methods are acceptable to CalRecycle for data points such as tonnages, source sector, and material type. So a little bit later in the presentation, once we've discussed how to report each stream and flow, we'll discuss a little bit more about how to record these data and in an acceptable format to the department. So just to preview that, that's Title 14, Article 9.25, Section 18815.9, and it's called Methods. So that really pertains to basically all the reporting that's under this article. Lastly, number 3, I know what reporting requirements are for the reporting entity or entities. So essentially that's kind of similar to number 1, except at the conclusion of the quarter, you'll compile the recorded information in a format that's acceptable to the department. And we'll talk about how to, you know, discuss what data points are needed to be submitted quarterly with respect to RDRS. So a little bit about well, roughly on schedule here, just to preview the rest of the agenda. From about now until 3:30, we have the floor basically open to discuss these reporting entity types: food waste self-haulers, contract haulers, transfer processing facilities and operations, disposal facilities, recycling and composting facilities and operations, and brokers and transporters. So about 2:50, we'll take a short afternoon break and pick back up at 3. from about 3:30 until 4:15, we'll cover the methods as I articulated, the how to record and report tonnages, material type, source sector, when things like scales are needed versus exemptions. And then sort of a 15-minute wrap-up after that. Now, if we do end up covering these sections a little bit faster, some of these times, of course, will move up. So we'll just kind of play it by ear. But we wanted to, dedicate the bulk of the workshop today to being receptive and answering folks' questions. That's what this is really boils down to, is an opportunity to ask any question, if you have any confusion after I explain how to report, that's the time to talk about that. So we'll have plenty of time for that, and don't hesitate to send in questions that you might have, and we want to try to be as interactive as possible with regards to all this. So with that in mind, we'll sort of just go ahead and jump right in here. So for folks that are participating in person, if you haven't done so already, on the back table, there's some flow chart handouts that correspond almost exactly with some of the presentation material that we're going to be showing up here on the screen. I'm also going to be using the laser pointer. So it's possible that folks may not be able to see that on the online, but I'll try to make it clear, which flows and arrows we're sort of discussing. All right, sounds good. Let's go ahead and get started then.